You are listening to the Tallinn Product Group podcast with Janika. My guest today is a dear colleague from Katana, Maria Saviste. Maria is the principal customer experience and market researcher at Katana, the cloud-based inventory software. She plays a key role in guiding strategic decisions for both business and product teams. Before Katana, Maria worked as a researcher at Telia, Pipedrive, and Whereby. She's worked across various levels of research, always ensuring that her insights are not only solving customer problems, but helping to reach business goals. Welcome, Maria. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
What I've loved about working with you is that you always make sure that your research insights become actionable results. Other teams are going to pick up on them and make sure that they're actually used for something good. But today, I'm really excited to dive into 3 different topics. I know that you are really business-minded as a researcher, so being empathetic towards customers is not the only goal. It's also making sure that the insights are business-oriented. So I want to know more how you make sure that your research is business-focused. I want to understand better how you make sure that these insights get into product development. And the last part is getting a bit more practical insights for product managers, how to be more efficient in doing research. But before we get into all that, maybe you can talk a bit more about all the research levels that are happening in startups, so our listeners know a bit better what kind of work researchers do and where you land on this different levels.
Sure. So if we specifically talk about tech, product development and the SaaS space, so to say, then I think still the most known level is sort of the UX or usability research that is well known. And I think that continues to be hugely important. So that is the question, how something is done. A lot of usability testing work goes into that, how the workflows are structured in products, etc. Then there is what I would call the middle level, which is, a lot of product teams or companies are structured into teams, and those teams have a dedicated responsibility area. So there is decision-making that happens on that level, and then the research that gives insight for these decisions. So what should we develop next in a domain of that particular team, for example? And I think that is the level on which PMs or product managers traditionally operate a lot, and a lot of product team research is done on. And then there's the type of insight that is necessary to guide the company or the product strategy as a whole. And that means sort of these broader questions like who is our ideal target customer, the ICP. Ideal customer profile is the ICP, yeah. Or how do we make decisions, what parameters go into this, defining that business or customer type. Where should we look next to as a company, which areas? Then there's an overlap with market research. So it's sort of this more strategic level of, I would say, customer intelligence, which blends market research with UX and customer levels. So it's kind of a mix that informs that top top level. So 3 levels at large, but of course there's ground areas in between.
Okay, so there's the user experience, product level, and strategic level. So where do you as a customer experience and market researcher land?
So in Katana specifically, I've been working across product teams, not assigned to any one team, but trying to produce insights that would inform multiple teams, the product organization as a whole, as well as our marketing and the revenue side of the business as well. So it's, I would say, the more overarching, the broader top level questions. Done a lot of work on our ICP, so that has been a topic for sure.
So both like product level and strategic level.
Yeah. Because the product teams, they do have their own dedicated areas, but to understand how these prioritize between, or where should we shift more attention, for example, there needs to be some kind of a pulling together. So I've been I would say, a partner to reflect on that and kind of, put the picture maybe into a larger lens or like focus. Yeah.
Okay. So getting a bit more specific about how you work at Katana, like how big is your team? Who are your stakeholders? And what kind of research do you spend your time on mostly?
Yeah, I don't have a team. I've come to call myself like a moving particle. So I shift between teams and put my energy where it's most needed at that specific time. So it can be informing more on the marketing or like side. It can be something necessary for the leadership. It can be for the product team. So I'm kind of shifting my focus as it's necessary in that specific moment. And that is something that I think is important for me to, in my approach, in how I approach research, is that it can be quite a flexible and a broad role. I think researchers are generally quite resourceful and good at finding a way. That's
like product managers.
Yes. Yeah. So different types of data, different ways to approach different questions.
Okay. But so as if you are a moving particle, what kind of how do you know which way to go? How do you set yourself goals? Or how, product managers have OKRs, they have business side of the company looking at them saying, okay, we need results, we need more customers, or we need more retention. So how, you find meaning or purpose in your work, making sure that you're going towards something?
I would say the most fundamental thing is understanding the company strategy and the goals that we have. So it's really putting efforts into that, as well as conversations with my stakeholders on various levels around where do we see more challenges, and then coming up with ways to tackle that lack of information or whatever the lack is with the skill set and tools that I have at hand, which is predominantly getting information about our customers or the market. So
okay. So while you're doing research and gathering data, what kind of sources are you using? Are you doing customer interviews, or are you working with a data analytics team? How do you gather your insights?
Yeah, it's really kind of like a mixed method thing. So depending on a particular question, the data sources or the methods can vary, of course. Still, I would say interviews is the core of my skills. I think there's so much value that you can get from talking to people and even more specifically analyzing rigorously that data that you have from those conversations. But of course, it's not isolated as such. I think, more often it's in combination with looking at product analytics or other sort of macro data or quant data, as well as when it comes to qual, I've worked with analyzing customer data like sales goals or customer success goals, which is in a B2B company an absolute gold mine of data. There's so much of value that can be extracted from there in understanding the underlying customer needs and so the value expectation. So yeah, worked with these data sources as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. If the data coming from the sales is well structured and you have access to it, it's a gold mine. So coming back to align research with business goals, how do you do that? How do you make sure you focus on the business goals?
As I said, it's diving into the strategy and the goals, really making sure that I do understand what those goals are. So it's asking questions, it's having conversations with those stakeholders to, I guess, understand opportunities or areas where there is a lack, and then tackling those areas. But it's not only driven by my initiative. Of course, there are requests that can be from the leadership or like product work. So yeah.
Okay. So this kind of assumes that the company has a thought through like strategy, or at least some assumptions about how the business is going to go forward, or what are the like levers that the business can pull.
And I'd say that is quite critical for research to be well set up in a company. So otherwise, the value can kind of dissolve, I think. So having a clear strategy alignment on that is really important. And fortunately, Katana is a company that does have that. And that was an absolute deal maker for me for joining.
So talking about that strategy, I know I have seen that there's like a meeting room where this is actually, I think it's on the wall, something that they cooked up years ago. And it's still kind of, you can see the steps that we have made and we are going forward with. But I wanted to ask, now that you are on board and doing research and you base your research on this strategy, do you have any examples of how your research has changed that strategy? What kind of impact has your research had to that strategy?
Yeah, well, I think an example of that is the quite recent work that I did on our ideal customer profile. So the backstory is that our target audience has changed over time. And these segments that we are now looking towards as our ideal customers are quite different from companies that we served previously. So in understanding what the value expectations, the needs and the context of them are has been a really large focus on my work. And that particular research really informed how we go forward, or where we put energy in terms of some key areas for product development as well that were taken into a closer focus. And it's, of course, not because of my work only. It's a collaboration with the product teams for sure.
So you did research on the ICP. So the company has an ideal customer profile they want to approach. So you are interviewing those people. And like, are you redefining the ICP based on that? Or are you just gathering more information about the ICP? So does, like, during that process, the ICP definition change?
Yeah, it did change. So it's both gathering more elaborate understanding as well as defining some parameters better. So there are like things like, I don't know, company size or revenue segment, or, you know, those firmographics that are often used by B2B SaaS companies to define their ideal targets. So it's tweaking those parameters, which my research has provided insight into. So it's not that I decide, it's to inform those decision making.
You mentioned that you are working both on the product level and the strategic level. So how do you prioritize between those two?
I think on the product level, predominantly my role is still consulting the teams. So it's being a discussion partner in when there is a question that a team is putting into focus into thinking about what the best question could be to find the answer to. And then, of course, thinking about how to get to that understanding. So I haven't done a lot of dedicated work for product teams, although now, for example, there is a strategic initiative that we have, and I'm kind of more closely involved with that.
Okay. So moving forward towards product development. So you mentioned that you don't specifically do research for product teams. You help them out with research. So product managers still have to do their own kind of specific research that is important for their specific scope. But you do collaborate with product teams on the research that you have done.
Yeah.
So how do you collaborate with them? Do you have any specific tactics? How you make sure that your insights are actually used? Or how do you approach that?
Yeah, so this is it's a work in progress. It's far from ideal, but we had a really good experiment for last quarter, for the current quarter then. Is that so I did kind of the ICP research, which uncovered some key areas, and then there was an initiative in the product teams to map out opportunities based on that, and I was included in that process. So it was really across all of the product teams coming together, looking at how do we prioritize work across teams, and this was informed by that larger level picture that I was able to contribute with my work. So I think that was a great example. Other than that, it's having conversations with people, pointing them to some insights that I've uncovered, and
Yeah, I loved how you shared. I think you had multiple tools. You shared your slide decks about the insights of a bunch of research that you did. You also had pages in Confluence, I think we are using, where this information was readily available if someone wanted to do a deep dive. And I remember you also did a workshop with the product team or product marketing team about basically giving them the research and like letting them deconstruct the insights that they got.
I do try to. I do all of these things. So it's of course having your insights ready as for consumption in various formats, and there needs to be a written format, an easy to digest format, and then something that you do with the people. So either a walkthrough or a workshop or something like that. And I would say the latter one is what defines that information is really heard. So I try to do kind of this either a workshop or a walkthrough with multiple teams. So per team based on their specific interests.
Yeah, absolutely. Like as a product manager, and while I have done research, you always try to share your research, like either via like short videos that everyone can consume asynchronously. But when I look at the stats, it's usually very low. Nobody is looking at it.
Yeah.
That might be specific to product managers, as like you are already the main stakeholder and like mostly interested.
It's not. It's not. I've done my share of experimentation of what formats work. Most of them don't. So there's a low engagement for many more traditional formats, especially the written ones. So I mean, ideally, I would like do a podcast and like short videos that are fun to look at. But
that's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I've realized like people may watch like a 5-minute video, but they won't watch 10-minute video of your research insights. So yeah, and also that 5 minutes can't be just monotonously like giving the insights or overview of the research. You have to be engaging, and especially as an Estonian, you're not that. I usually don't talk
we're
like
not
that.
that engaging.
No, we're not that engaging, especially when you're behind the computer alone and trying to be chirpy. So yeah, I assume like the workshops are they the ones that can generate most like results for you, or what you have found is the best way to give your research insights to people?
Yeah, I think, of course, conversations with key stakeholders are the most impactful. So if you can have a one-on-one conversation with someone that will drive this forward, that's the ideal thing. Next best thing is a workshop for multiple people. So yeah, or a walkthrough or whatever format that fosters a conversation. So it's not just consuming a material, it's asking questions about that. So that creates a whole nother level of understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. That is an interesting thing that you said, though. Like for me, as a product manager, the main thing how I get things done is that I know who are the people in like different stakeholder groups who can drive change or who can give me answers. So having a one-on-one with that person, I think that is like a very good point here. Making sure that your insights are heard. But I feel like you still have to do, looking from the product management perspective, still have to go through the motions, have the written one, have the video.
Absolutely.
So people know that you are out there, you have done something. And if they one day think, oh my God, I have heard something about this topic, and I think someone, Maria or Janika, did research on this, they have a reference point where they can
For
get
sure. That's a base level thing. It has to be done. So I think it's not one or the other. It's you have to do it all.
Yeah, absolutely. So going now already into more practicalities of doing research, there's a lot of feedback coming in from customer support, sales, account management, whatever you have in the company that are customer-facing teams. Then you have all those qualification forms that customers fill in, like churn forms. You have NPS surveys, etc. Product managers doing research, researchers doing research, etc. So how do you sift through all of that information, making sure that you are actually getting actionable insights?
Yeah. And I think that is something that the PMs specifically can not struggle with, but it's a particular thing. Being a PM, you just get bombarded with information from different data sources as well as stakeholders. It can be sales, it can be whatever leadership. In different companies, it comes in many forms. But sort of, I guess, the question is how to make sense of it and what to prioritize, right? And I think here that that level of can be ground or top now, so that understanding of like who is the customer that we're serving as a priority. And really understanding whether it's a user profile or a company profile, depending on if you're B2B or B2C or whatever the model is. But it's having that more general picture or understanding that you evaluate that single data point against. So if a piece of feedback comes in, like, I want this feature or whatever, you have to understand where that wish is coming from, what is the context of that business or the user, and how that aligns with first of all, the strategic sort of direction that you're taking, as well as that customer or business profile. So it's having that bigger picture that you bounce the new input against.
Okay, so you have a lot of data, you try to understand some specific problem, and then you see, is it an important problem for our ideal customer profile?
How does it map onto that space that we're serving and the direction that we're taking?
Yeah, okay.
And I would say more practically, think about the main value proposition. You can't get it very wrong if your plan, your next idea contributes to serving that main value proposition better, enforcing that. So that's a useful exercise to go through, is evaluating like whatever the plan is or idea, or does that contribute to serving that value proposition better, or where does it sit on that importance?
Okay. So when we're talking about doing customer interviews with the ICP and all the data that we have in the company, all those phone calls that you had with sales have had with customers, all the feedback that's coming in from customer support, is it possible to, from that bunch of data that you already have, also without talking to customers, gather an insight for a new strategic direction or something that needs to shift in the company?
I think it depends, which is an unpopular answer, but it does depend on what is the level of understanding that you are at. So if there's a lot of work done before already, then I will not say that it's not possible. And it depends also on the level of decision being made and the risk put into it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's what I figured.
It's the researcher's favorite answer. Sorry, it depends.
That's fine. I had another one about, so all this information coming from different sources is stored in different places. Do you have a specific way how you collect that data and understand what is coming from data, feedback, etc., how it's like making a bigger picture? How do you usually approach that?
Yeah. So in Katana, we have an awesome new piece of software, which is AI-based, and a startup from Estonia called Align.
Align, okay.
Which pulls all of these different conversations and data points together and then analyzes them quite automatically. But and learns basically on the input.
Okay.
And,
So, but that's basically all text-based feedback. Does it also take into account any analytics or data, or that's something that you have to?
No, not really. But you can tweak your prompts according to company parameters, etc. So it's very useful, I would say.
Yeah, that's
especially
amazing.
On the product level.
Yeah. A year ago, I remember I was like doing an Excel sheet and matching all the inputs and thoughts that I've gathered from different sources, and pulled together the picture for myself. So I assume you're like a daily user for that product.
Well, I would say I like to try it out. Still kind of, I heavily rely on interviews because I think that this comes on top of learning from those quantified touch points. So the questions that I try to answer are why and how specifically.
Yeah.
And sometimes this is difficult to uncover from sales calls or customer success calls or requests to the support teams. So it's more about getting impulses from these data sources, but then diving deeper into those questions on how and why. And I think for answering this type of questions, still interviews are invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. But when you have done a bunch of interviews, do you yourself then input all your interviewed data into that database or that product and like gather your summaries from there, or are you still relying on yourself doing the?
I am still relying on myself to do that.
Okay.
And that is actually on purpose. So even with the analysis tools that I specifically use, which is Dovetail, there is a possibility for more automated process of, tagging the interview paragraphs with tags and then developing themes more automatically. It's not perfect, and I would say that it's another level of understanding, spending time with that data, sitting with it, going through it. It's a whole nother level of understanding that you get from that. So because research is all I do, I make time for that process.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's very interesting. And also when you have been actually on those interviews, you also have the information that is not like in words. It's not like
it's
just
tacit. It's called tacit knowledge or kind of tacit information that is between the lines. It's the, the mimics that we have. It's the silences. It's the nuances that don't come through with summaries. So I think one of the things that are on my mind is AI is great at summarizing things. But reading a summary and developing a nuanced understanding is very different levels.
Yeah.
So just getting the information does not mean that you develop an understanding. So I think, especially on the a product team level, I think it's important to make an effort to make sure that we're not just consuming information, we're developing an understanding, a deeper one.
Yeah. And also making sure that you watch some of those sales calls or some of the research calls, because it's so easy to forget that behind that all of that text, there's a human being that has emotions and problems. And if you actually see someone describing their problem and how emotional they are or how angry they are, that gives a totally different sense of urgency.
It gives a totally different sense of urgency, which again can be tricky.
It can create bias.
It can create bias. But again, this is where that broader top-level understanding of where we are going, who is our ideal customer, what our value proposition is really important to estimate that information against.
Yeah, absolutely. So another problem that I have had as a product manager in B2B companies is getting customer interviews. By that I mean there's usually a sales team, support team, or account management team, customer success team who are having key relationships with those customers. And in a B2B setting, you don't have sometimes a lot of customers, and those customers are very valuable because it's just not one person paying for the product. It's a bunch of users also behind that customer. So how do you, have you faced this issue of not being able to get direct access to the customer, and how you have overcome that with keeping all those relationships good?
Yeah, I haven't faced any issues in the sense of gatekeeping, which I know can happen at some companies. That is not the case in Katana, fortunately. Everyone's super helpful from customer success or sales to, foster those relationships if it's necessary. But of course, B2B, there's often just a smaller sample size that you can work with for recruitment. So that is an issue. what can I say? There are like some common sense things that you can do, and then a silver bullet. I can share the silver bullet first.
Please do. I'm very intrigued.
Which is pay people for their time, and they will talk to you. So if it's a super important initiative, offering incentives works for recruitment, and I think companies are beginning to view that more as an investment, not a cost, which it is, absolutely is. So so that's the silver bullet. The other things are, of course, understanding who you should talk to. So in B2B, it can happen that you have an understanding of the company level, the business level, but not the user level. But I think you have to have both.
Yeah.
So if you are researching an area that is really close to that specific user, of course, they will be more prone to talking to you. Then another thing is understanding sort of their work dynamics. When is a good time to reach out? For example, now we're recording, it's the busiest season for a lot of consumer companies. We had Black Friday and Christmas season is now, so they might be really busy. So it's balancing all of these factors, and this balancing helps you to estimate the sort of opportunities you have to reach someone.
Okay, so it's useful to get customers incentivized and making sure that it's the right time for them to talk to you.
It's the right time and it's the right person.
Yeah, it's the right person. So understanding the right person, how do you, what kind of tools do you have to understand that this is the right person?
Yeah, so this is something that I'm working on at Katana at the moment, is that previously I've been involved on the, understanding the company level a lot. And now we're shifting focus to the user level. So we have multiple different types of users there that do partially similar things, partially really different things. So it's really understanding who are our main target personas, how they differ in between, what their workflows are. So mapping on those, jobs that we have to the user persona or that level.
Okay, so you have the user persona. So you have from either the product data or customer support data, you have a specific person, and then you match that person to what are the actions they are doing inside the product to understand if they are the correct person.
It can be that, and of course, the most dumb proof if someone has requested something in an area, they're more likely to speak to you. So
and probably they are the person for whom this specific thing or feature is relevant. I want to come back quickly to the incentivizing. What is a good incentive for, what is a common practice in terms of incentive for recruiting interviews?
Yeah, so that should be figured out on a region's basics and an industry basics. There's a couple of materials out there. User Interviews, which is a platform, has developed an incentives guide, which is a really good one. So it offers a range of what is an appropriate amount of incentives to offer for people in different positions and industries. So I would recommend that as a resource but it's also just trial and error.
But it's mostly something that is targeted towards that person as an individual, not as the company gets more credit for using your product or something like that.
I would say that if you are talking to someone who is employed at a company, then why would they care that the company
can use more your product?
There you go.
Makes sense. Cool. So again, about the approaching the customers. So let's say you have like 10 product managers who all want to, and the researchers, who want to talk to customers in a B2B setting. Like, how, I understand the nervousness from account managers and sales team, that there might be 10 different people approaching one customer with totally different angles and different styles of approaches. Do you have some kind of guidelines in Katana or any good practices, how to make sure that customer-facing teams don't have to feel nervous about their customer relationships?
Yeah, I would say it goes even beyond product teams reaching out. It's how often people receive information from that company, because for that customer, it's all that company, right? They don't know who is reaching out, so they just see that logo or whatever the name is, right? So I think it's really important to have on whatever department that lives in, and someone who thinks about how to orchestrate when we can reach out and how often that happens, on what topics, and then a system that can put together and align these communications data. So that's one of the tools. And for research, particularly, I think the golden standard is to have some kind of a grace period, not to include the same users specifically in outreach or targeting for a new project unless a certain amount of time has passed, and different periods work in different settings. So
how do you track that?
Yeah, there are tools like, I don't know, Intercom and whatnot, where you can set up tags. Or this is in research, it's a whole area of research operations. And in bigger companies, there are like dedicated people handling this. So yeah, but there are for sure strategies you can find browsing online as well, and how to do that.
Okay. So I wanted to ask a bit about like difference between PMs and researchers doing customer interviews. PMs have very specific scope and like not a lot of time to do research. Like what kind of changes, like differences you have yourself noticed there based on those constraints?
Yeah, I think PMs can feel a lot more skin in the game when they're facing a customer. So I imagine it can be more challenging to keep a poker face when, someone is bashing on your product or saying that, this is no good, and refrain from like going into advocating for that product. Sure. So I think, especially as a researcher working across team and not attributed to one, then I have the luxury of kind of more distance. And the PMs for sure, are really invested in that area that they are specifically looking into. So, that is one difference for sure. What else? Yeah, the time doing research. This is all I do, so for sure I have more time to think about it. And I've maybe developed some tricks and things that I don't need to think about that much. Whereas for, product managers, it's one thing among a lot of responsibilities that they do. So it can be challenging to find time to develop a process that is bulletproof.
Yeah. Do you have any like tips to share that could, like, even if they are very small tactical things that like product manager can take and use and be more efficient in doing research?
Yeah. Well, they are small ones, but I still find they're like quite impactful. I think one thing is I've noticed that sometimes people just get straight to it in an interview. Like, take it easy. Take a little bit of time to ease into it. You'll get just better responses.
Okay.
So that's one. The other thing is when the interviewee goes silent, sit with that silence.
That's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable, but it's kind of like a mind game that goes there that, if I go silent, the ball is now in your part of the table. So the interviewee can reveal something or pick up a thought, and just plainly they have time to think.
Yeah.
So don't think that it's uncomfortable. It's really not that. Or factor in that how you perceive is different to what is the reality on the other side. They are probably thinking about it still. So just sit with that silence for a little bit. I think that's really can do wonders. And most important thing I would say is remember that your research questions that you're trying to get answers to are not the questions that you would ask from your interviewee.
What do you mean by that?
So what I mean is you have to translate it into not being leading.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any example that you can give?
Let me think. Better to ask it in like a roundabout way, in describe how you do something or how you approach something, rather than would you like this or that, or which one is more important, this or that. So it's more asking them to describe their setting, their situations, and kind of their, approach to things, or like how they do their work, rather than putting them in front of very concrete options as like, tell me what you need.
Yeah. Okay. So for example, let's say I want to know what kind of user rights they need in the product. Instead of asking, what kind of user rights do you need? I need to ask, is there any constraints in the product? What you would like to...
Okay, that's a good one. So if you want to understand what types of user rights is optimal to develop at a product, you would need to understand the company structure, right? So I would ask about what departments are in the company, who needs to consume what information, what have been the incidents that the company has faced. What have been the consequences of these incidents, so you get like a sense of what is critical or not.
Okay, yeah.
And not ask the user in what type of user rights you need.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Is there anything that you have learned from product managers doing research?
For sure. I think one of the most important thing is to scope correctly to what is the optimal level of information we need to move forward. PMs are much more, are better at moving along at a faster pace. I think researchers can get easily hung up on trying to, deliver a perfect insight that is really well informed. But often we need just enough to take the next step, not the perfect, well-rounded understanding.
Yeah, I'm thinking, for me, product managers' job, or large part of that job, is taking uncertainty in and making it a bit more certain for everyone else. You are absorbing uncertainty or managing the risks of what's going to happen if I'm going to make the decision based on this information and without having a full picture, because you need to
never have that full picture.
You don't have the full picture. So to you as a researcher, do you have like these moments where you have to cope with uncertainty? How big part of your outcome includes uncertainty? Or
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's something that you integrate in, and you just have to be honest about that uncertainty and point to it, not try to hide it, of course.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, big, or the most critical outcome of research is not the answers, it's the new questions. and better questions. So it's uncovering uncertainty and learning, shifting your focus to those parts that are important to cover.
Absolutely. And yeah, your job, I'm thinking, so as you have time to do research, and like you are starting off from a point of uncertainty in the company, you create more certainty through getting more data and insights, and those lead to new insights. But where do you stop as a researcher?
It never stops.
It never stops. Just now we have another problem, but you need to prioritize what is the next uncertainty you're going after.
Exactly. And that's again shifting your focus to where we want to get. What is the direction we're taking, and sort of bouncing that against the decision you're trying to make.
Okay. So talking about the future of research, how do you foresee the role of researcher changing or evolving?
Yeah, in the research or product research, UX research, however we call that world, post-COVID, there has been a shift. And that has been with a lot of companies recognizing the value of having researchers as a strategic position. So it's that customer insight which addresses those broad and the big questions. So I think that is one direction that is really meaningful for research as a whole, in informing company as a whole and not only working on that ground level of usability or UX, which is still really meaningful, and there's a lot of value to uncover there. So not saying anything bad about that, but still. And I think another dynamic is quantifying qualitative insights, which is all of those different, messy data that we have from sales calls and whatever. And of course, AI will probably make a huge difference in that area. I think there's a lot of hype at the moment, some less than perfect products out there, but I'm excited to see what lies in the future.
Yeah. Do you know any specific tools, methodologies, or practices that PMs and researchers should keep an eye on right now, besides ChatGPT?
I think even ChatGPT is a good one, but I would say not talking about methodologies, but still I want to stress how important it is to make sure that you really understand the insight that you're getting from those tools. So don't trust the outcome without having access to the raw data and at least checking to see if it aligns with the outcome that you get from those. Ideally understanding if the data sources are adequate and what goes into the decision or the summary that spits out from whatever that tool is.
Yeah.
So it's ideally, the level you would have, the level of rigor is possibility to go back to those raw data levels.
Yeah, absolutely. So I assume Align enables you to do that, yeah?
It does.
Yeah. So you use Dovetail, Align. Do you have any other tools that you recommend for research?
Yeah, I think from product analytics, we have, again, from the world of AI, an awesome new tool is Databricks Genie, which allows you to have conversations about data with your databases in a natural language. So this has been a game changer for me, so I don't have to bother our product data analytics team with my one-off odd questions, but I can just poke around. So that has been really great for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember one of the companies I worked at, we started using a huge BI tool, and you still had to be able to do SQL queries to get data out of it. And it took a lot of time and effort to make sure that all the teams know what data is available, can like put those queries together, etc. So having a natural language interface seems magical.
It's really good, yeah. And you can still kind of see the code, the SQL, so you can kind of see if it's making the correct decision. And still, of course, all of the business critical data we mirror back to the analytics team to make sure that it's valid and holds.
All right. That's all we have time for today. Thank you, Maria, for coming in.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.